Saturday, 12:30 p.m, Enzo Maresca's Chelsea march on as we continue to try and somehow pull Champions League qualification out of the bag. When we face David Moyes' Everton, and here to break down the match with me, discuss the game, give our preferred starting lineups and a score prediction at the end of it, is channel fan favourite, the big dog, Josh Aveste. Josh, how's things, mate?
Things are good. I'm ready to talk football with you. This is going to be a wonderful game that you very much think we're going to win. Are you all right?
I'm all right, yeah.
Yeah?
I'm all right.
Yeah? Cracking on?
Yeah, cracking
You going
on.
to the game?
Surviving? No. No, I'm going to do a live stream now. I'm going to do a live stream from home, yeah. So there'll be a live stream for the game.
What time are you going to start?
Half hour after I schedule it. Usually, that's how it normally goes, isn't it? But it's an early one, isn't it?
It's a very early one, yeah, the game, yeah. I mean, this fixture time against Everton scared me. I think when I originally saw this on the fixture list, I thought this was away. And I thought that was game over. Because at 12:30 up in Liverpool would have been an absolute mare. But at Stamford Bridge, I'm a little bit more confident than I would otherwise be. But yeah, I don't know what you think. I don't really love the early kickoffs.
I don't really care.
Do you not?
To be honest, no, I don't really care.
What happens if you're attending the ground? Do you prefer to get, a few pints in, or can you do that at 9 a.m?
I can do that at 9 a.m.
Fair,
That's not a problem for me.
Fair.
I think everyone in the Butcher's Hook will vouch for that.
I was going to ask you what's the earliest pint you've ever had, but to be honest with you, time is a continuum, and so
time is only relevant on what time you slept or if you slept. So
can I ask you a question? When you go to Wetherspoons at the airport, is that just a time-free zone that you can just have a pint whenever you want? Yeah. Have you done that?
Have I? So I have.
They call it the Joey Night pint.
Listen, it's what do they call it? Dutch courage.
Oh, really? Is it that bad?
It is for me, yeah.
Yeah, let us know in the comments if you also have a fear of flying, and if you do and have conquered it, please do give Joey some tips.
I'm actually, believe it or not, going to get hypnotised.
Are you actually? I've heard people get acupuncture for stuff like this. Have you heard about this?
I get acupuncture as well. I get everything.
Yeah. Just get it all done. Do you know what? Fly with a few needles in you. That might be good. That might be a laugh.
There you go. Before we get into the game itself, there's an elephant in the room that I need to address.
Where?
He goes by the name... your boy, Mykhailo Mudryk.
Yeah, you've got some new info for us.
Yeah, I mean, he's been proven completely innocent.
Yeah. I mean, when has a lie detector test ever been incorrect?
No, exactly. And I've always gone by the notion that if it's good enough for Jeremy Kyle, it's good enough for Chelsea.
Yeah, there's a new dating reality TV show on E4. I don't know if you've seen this, which is all basically Love Island mixed with Jeremy Kyle lie detector test. And I think Mykhailo Mudryk might have got a little bit confused, auditioned for that television show, and ended up proving his innocence.
Yeah.
Why not? I'm quite happy about this news, mate, because I mean, like you say, the ban surely now is just dropped. I mean, we're going to be seeing Mykhailo Mudryk back in the starting 11 very soon.
Is this satire, or are you being serious right now?
I'm being deadly serious. I mean, why not? No.
So
for those of you, it's a bit of a joke, isn't it?
For those of you who don't know or maybe don't understand the reality around lie detectors, there's a reason that the police around would you say the 90s dropped polygraphs?
Yeah.
Maybe.
Yeah.
It's weird because obviously you've got famous true crime cases. It's a shame that there isn't like a good true crime channel to watch these.
Do you know what? There's not many
to
out
watch
there,
these cases on.
Yeah.
But either way, you might find one in the description. But you've got like famous true crime cases like the Chris Watts family murders and whatnot, and they use a polygraph in that test in America, and that was in the 2010s or something like that.
And
or maybe,
was it admissible in court?
No, it would not have been. What it did is it helped him get a confession, right? Okay. Now, the problem with polygraphs, and that's what they call a lie detector. The problem with them is they say, oh, they're up to 98% accurate. Yeah, they're up to 98% accurate, but they don't tell you what they're down to. So that's the problem. That's the problem. That's the problem, right? So I might go, yeah. Oh, mate, I'm smashing it in the gym up to 99% of the time, but I don't go. But also sometimes down to 10% of the time. And lie detectors, polygraphs, have been proven that sometimes, or in most occasions, they're no more than, I think the number I read was 58% accurate.
Yeah.
That means you've got a 50-50 chance, in my eyes, more or less, of lying and passing. However, I'll caveat that by saying I do not believe that Mykhailo Mudryk has lied on this polygraph. I believe that the answers he has given and the answers that the polygraph has come back are correct in his mind, right? So I believe that they've said, did you knowingly take Meldonium? And Mykhailo Mudryk has said, no, I did not knowingly take Meldonium, right? There you go.
That's all right.
That's
the way it goes.
That's my belief. Is that your belief?
Yeah, absolutely.
But the problem is then when we debunk the whole lie detector theory, we look at it and we go, okay, but whether you knowingly digested it or not, it was in your body.
So can we play out some scenarios then? So say, for example, he was found with meldonium in his system.
Yep.
And he was found via whatever. He proved himself to say that he didn't knowingly take it. So, for example, prove that it was a tainted supplement.
Just quickly, sorry to interrupt you. Meldonium, for those of you who don't know, a performance-enhancing drug. Best known for being manufactured in the Ukraine, and amongst many benefits that it can give athletes, the main ones being physicality and stamina. Just
I think that's very important
I think
to go
it's
through.
important
Thank you for that.
out.
And I'm glad you gave the context of where it's from. So he proves in court, whatever it is, in the hearing that he goes into, and says that it was found from a tainted supplement. He identifies the tainted supplement and proves that he didn't knowingly, therefore, take it. Yep. What's the course of action then?
Ban.
How long?
What did Rio get?
Rio got 12 months, I think.
Did he get 18 months or 12 months?
There you go. It might be 18. I don't know for sure. So maybe it was 18.
It could have been a season and a half, you know.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because he...
So what I would say is banned since December. He'd be back for the 26-27 season in my head. That would be what I believe, and that is if he can prove I took, let's say for example, this supplement that you can buy in maybe Ukraine's version of Holland and Barrett. I had no idea that it was in it.
Is it that simple?
I had no idea that it was in it, and therefore that's why it was in my system. Mm-hmm. That basically is the best case scenario, because when you venture down the street of, oh, I got spiked, I went away on international duty and someone put something in my food, something done that, there's no proof. You cannot prove it. You literally cannot prove it. And as you've got CCTV of someone pouring a little bit of meldonium into your food, you cannot prove it.
So basically, that's one and the same. So basically, the situations that you're saying is whether he unknowingly took it from a supplement or whether he unknowingly was spiked. In the eyes of the law, in the eyes of the law,
it does not matter. Yeah. And I'm obviously contextualizing this by using sort of my background in boxing and knowing in combat sport what goes on and how this is done. Basically, if you come out and just deny it and deny that it even could have been in your system, that's probably the worst thing you can do. Probably the best course of action is to accept it was in my system. And if you can do, let's say, for example, what Ryan Garcia, a well-known boxer, did. Some of the channel viewers might know him, some might not. He's a boxer from the United States. He came out very quickly after he failed his drugs test and said that this was in this, and I can prove I took this. I unknowingly did it. He got given a 12-month ban, and he'll have been out of the ring for a year and a half by the time he returns, right? Yep. That's literally the best thing that you can do. So I believe that's probably now the course of action that we will see from Mykhailo Mudryk. However, it's going to be tricky to find out what has Meldonium in. And at the same time, this is one of the things with being a footballer, right? People talk about, and people, I can already tell people won't like this in the comment section. People talk about the wages that footballers are on, right? And they slate the wages, they slate the salaries that these players are taking home. And I always make a point of saying, listen, a football career is short. Only a very small percent of football players will go into probably ideally punditry financially. Management, if you can go on to be a top level manager, but really ideally you want to go into punditry financially rather than management, because if you're a lower level manager, like a lot of top players go on to be, then the money's not going to be there anywhere near what it was like earning money from playing football. And therefore I think that one of the things that you've got to understand with footballers' wages is it is hazard pay in a way, in the same way, and I'm not comparing the two, but in the same way that a crane driver will be paid a lot of money because it's hazard pay, it's a risky job. A deep sea diver, from what we know, offshore workers, things like that. In the same way that they're paid hazard pay, footballers, I think part of what goes into their pay packet is obviously the influx of money in the game, the amount of money that is in the game, and therefore then the sponsorship deals, everything like that. But part of it is the fact that you can't just, go to a restaurant that is newly opened and you don't know and whatever. You do have to have top nutritionists monitoring everything that goes in to your body. You do have to come in for stick on social media and things like that. And this all comes into it. And that's why I perceive it. And again, I don't want to use that analogy in terms of people that risk their life in their jobs and whatnot. Although, there have been footballers that have tragically passed away and whatnot and had things go wrong. But what I do want to use the analogy is it's hazard pay. You do have to take the downside with what comes with that pay. So I believe that Mykhailo Mudryk, and people might not like this, but I believe that Mykhailo Mudryk is responsible, whether he knowingly or unknowingly took the substance, is responsible for what is in his body. And hopefully it never happens, but if it ever happens to me, I'll hold my hands up and say whether I unknowingly took something or didn't take it or did or whatever, it's my body, it's my responsibility.
So 2 follow-up questions from that then is, why has it taken so long to get to this stage? And my other question then is, what do you think will happen to Mykhailo Mudryk at Chelsea? So bear in mind, we've just said the minimum now is going to be until the start of next season. So i.e. not the most recent season, the season after that. What do you think is going to happen?
So the first answer is it hasn't got to any stage, because all he's done is done a polygraph. We've still not had the B sample.
No, but as in, why has it taken so long to get the B sample?
Well, then I'm purely speculating.
But let's speculate for the time being.
So you want
that's all we can do for now.
They've got the B sample.
Yeah.
Got the B sample ages ago.
And so what are they doing now? Are they going through the case of trying to prove that he didn't knowingly take it?
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
And is that why it hasn't come out in the press then? That's why neither side have publicised it. Because if I was Mykhailo Mudryk...
Josh, let me give you an example, right? You have got some bad news for me in regards to a brand deal. We've had a brand deal. We've been earning well off it, and it's fallen through.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
But you believe within a fortnight, bearing in mind this brand deal, let's say like no one expects Mudryk to play before the end of the season, yeah? So you've kind of got until the end of the season, right?
Yeah, yeah.
This brand deal still contracted to pay me for 2 more months, right? And you're very, very confident that you're going to get me an equal or even better brand deal within the next 2 or 3 weeks. Yeah? What do you do? What do you, as my manager, do? Do you tell me straight away, mate, the brand's dropped out or whatever? And by the way, this isn't a loaded question. I'd like to know your answer. Or do you wait to try and strike the new one and you hit me with the good news as well? So you hit me with the bad news and then you say to me, but I've just got X on board,
Yeah.
and that means we're covered and you don't need to worry. Because I think you would do the latter.
I would do the former only because it's interpersonal, i.e. we're friends and I can talk to you about that sort of thing, and I would rather be open and honest in that scenario. The difference in the scenarios that you're presenting and why it's a little bit unfair is that we're talking about something which is like, you know, PR, like public.
Yeah.
And we would be releasing statements to the public. And when you do that and you release a statement that it could even be countenanced in any other way, you look like an idiot, don't you?
Yep.
So I think that's the difference. And I think for me, if I was Mykhailo Mudryk, obviously he's being advised by the right people, and I'm sure he's got very smart PR people all around him now, so that's why the silence is going on. But if I was Mykhailo Mudryk, I mean, he did do a statement.
There's
but
not
I would
much
be
silence, so he's commenting on posts.
He's commenting on posts, but that's not saying anything about drugs.
No.
Like I think if I was him now, I'd be saying, I'm doing this process. I am innocent. I feel like something wrong has happened, and I'm going to prove my innocence. And I don't think the statement that he did 6 months ago is. I would want to be doing more, but maybe the PR people are advising him.
I think they're probably telling him to keep quiet. And before we quickly move on, I'll answer your second part of the question. Again, speculative, gut feeling. My gut instinct is that we don't see Mykhailo Mudryk play for Chelsea again. Yours?
If it is an 18-month minimum.
But just quickly, before we get into all that, Steak Mate are back. And this week, our friend Emmanuel has won over £1,000 from a tenfold ACCA with just a £10 stake. And if you want to win money just like Emmanuel, download Steak Mate today. And believe me, this is not your run-of-the-mill betting app. In fact, it's more like if Bet365 and Snapchat had a baby. And we are all chatting, bantering and betting in the Joey Night podcast chat. Also, remember, new customers get 20 quid in free bets when you bet just your first tenner. And StakeMate are offering even more bonuses as you play. So all you need to do is hit the link in the description below to download StakeMate. However, you do need to remember that you must be 18 years old or over. You must be living inside the UK, and most importantly, we all need to remember to gamble responsibly. Thanks very much to StakeMate for sponsoring another video. Let's get back into it.
Then I kind of will agree with you. I think we might have seen the last of him at Chelsea, which I think would be a big shame for a lot of people. I think it'd be a shame for Chelsea. I think it'd be a shame for Mykhailo. I think it'd be a shame for the Shakhtar Donetsk team, who are now going to not get all of their big bonus payments,
Well,
which I didn't know.
Millions worth.
So wait a second. When I haven't really got my head around this, did we pay less of a fee up front and then a lot of it was bonuses? Because we've been led to believe it's 65 odd million.
We were led to believe it was more like 72 million.
Yeah. But
these bonuses,
yeah,
I don't think they were like
they were easy bonuses
if he
to
makes
hit.
Team of the season.
Yeah.
I just think it was if he's included in this many match day squads, if he's included, and again,
Chelsea's still in the Premier League or whatever. It's really simple. So basically, what we're saying is it's a 40 odd £million deal.
Yeah.
That 30 million quid of bonuses, and if we do pull the contract, which is entirely feasible, because what I think the law, and I don't know for sure this, but I think the law is if you're out of the game for more than 2 years, which obviously he's done 6 months and he might get a ban for 18 or maybe even more. And I think you can just rip up the contracts.
But you can't do that before you go through a legal battle, and that will obviously commence after. So we won't have any answers on this for 6 months. But what we do know is it is heating up in the media over the last week or so that Chelsea will be activating the obligation to buy Jadon Sancho. Have you seen this story?
I have. I'd love to know what you think about it.
It's very hard when I don't feel like I've got a connection or understanding to the ownership of the club. When Roman was here, I very much thought that I could put my last pound on what Abramovich would do, right? And I wouldn't gamble a penny on what Blue Co and the rest of the guys would do. So when they say about, it's looking now like Chelsea might activate that clause and they might buy Jadon Sancho, it's hard for me to give an opinion because I don't believe that activating the clause and buying him means that he'll be with us next season, which sounds mental, doesn't it?
Which is the ultimate thing that I believe will happen in this case.
Yeah.
Now, can I explain a theory that I've got around this?
Yeah.
And I tweeted this fairly recently. I think that we have strong interest in Jamie Gittins from Borussia Dortmund, who is an English left winger, young, tearing it up, looks really, really good. I have a feeling that what they have said to Jadon Sancho is, we're activating the clause. You've got some interest in Dortmund. Dortmund would be able to pay you probably more wages than we want to. And so why don't we predicate a deal which allows you to go to Dortmund? You can go to Germany and play the best football you possibly can. You're there in your home. You've had success there. And we can negotiate, therefore, a favourable deal with the Jamie Gittins. Now, the reason why I say that is, if you don't do the Sancho deal, you still have to pay the £5 million. The £20 million difference between those numbers, in that you would have to pay the full amount of Jadon Sancho's clause, isn't really going to help you massively from a PSR perspective on the Gittins deal. So I think we end up, mate, selling him for 25 and £1 million. And use that to sort of secure that deal with Jamie Gittins, because he looks exceptional. Is there a world in which you could see Jadon Sancho starting for Chelsea next season?
No, I believe that he would always be somewhat of a rotation player with the options that we already have, and that's disregarding options that we might already bring in. However, I want to put it on record that I rate Jadon Sancho. This isn't any hate towards Jadon Sancho or whatever. I think that the pessimists and the critics of Jadon Sancho will sort of throw the same criticism that Marcus Rashford often had thrown at him, in terms of, like, when it came to signing that new contract, he really turned it on. When the news came out that it wasn't actually an obligation to buy, it was an option to buy that they framed as an obligation to buy, Jadon Sancho all of a sudden starts turning it on, scores some important goals, comes on, makes sort of match-defining contributions, which I wouldn't say either of us would deny he has done recently. No. However, my main sort of thing I would argue against that is that Jadon Sancho would have known the speculations of that contract. So, although the public became aware of it, Sancho would have known that the whole time.
Sancho's going to know for the last 6 months really what's going down.
Sancho and his agent, from day dot, when he signed for Chelsea Football Club, would have known that this is not an obligation, it is an option.
It's an audition.
It's an audition. Yeah. So, I really, there's a lot of people, and I've seen it on Twitter and whatnot, there's a lot of people that have said, he's only turned it on since he's realised that he could be going back to Man U. He's known that the whole time, trust me.
Can I say, the reason why I'm particularly concerned about this deal, and by the way, getting the option done and agreeing wages with Jadon Sancho in a contract are two very different things. So even if we have triggered the deal, it doesn't necessarily mean that Jadon Sancho is going to accept it, right?
Yeah.
And what really worries me with the contract is the amount of money that he's on. And for me, I think the owners are smart enough to see wage to output comparisons. And I don't think the wages, or the potential wages, that we would have to pay to have Jadon Sancho as a full-time member of the Chelsea playing staff predicates the amount of money that he's going to have to be.
He'd be taking a wage cut. What would he be? What would he be? What would he be getting paid in your mind?
Well, what was he on at United? Like 280 grand, I think it's something like that.
Sounds stupid.
I think it might even be slightly more.
Sounds stupid.
But I mean,
do you think he's looking at 180 at Chelsea?
I think they would want to be doing less than that.
Yeah, of course, no. But
as in, I think they're going to put a contract offer on the table, which is between 160, 170, probably.
Yeah,
something like that.
I don't think that his contribution over a 38-game season in the league, cup competitions and whatnot, I don't think that his contribution is quite worth that. The hard thing with it is Jadon Sancho is one of our more, he's still a young player, but he is one of our more experienced players. However, that experience, that leadership and stuff like that, I'm not saying he doesn't have it, but they're not attributes that I would necessarily list and reel off when I start talking about Jadon Sancho. So I think that I'm not against paying those wages, but if you are going to pay those wages, pay them for the players that you know can be
game changers.
Listen, Not everyone can be a Moyes Caicedo.
Yeah.
But if you can get close to that.
Yeah.
And I don't mean in terms of how good he is. I mean in terms of consistency. Caicedo does not blow hot and cold, my friend. Do you know what I mean? Yeah. And I think that the higher earners at our club, we need to prioritise making sure that, fine, you can be higher earners, but you've got to be higher earners that do not blow hot and cold. Now, speaking of transfers, and don't worry, we will get on to Everton, but I want to get this all covered and out the way. The last man I want to talk about is Dean. I can never say the name. Is it Huijsen? Is it Huijsen?
I always say Huijsen.
Huijsen.
But it could be anything.
Walter White.
By the way, he's Spanish, and that is not a Spanish name.
No.
So, fuck knows how you pronounce it.
Yeah.
Can we just call him Dino?
Dino Pacino. Probably do.
I mean, if Dave was called Dave, we can call Dino Dino.
He will be called Dean.
No, he's going to be called Dino.
Dino. Either's fine. Either's completely fine with me.
Yeah, Dino. You're buzzing about this.
19 years old. That concerns me, right?
I thought he was 20.
Is he 20?
I think he might be.
Basically 19. Yeah, you always round it up. Listen, Dean has been absolutely great this season. I think he's been really, really good for Bournemouth, and I think the ceiling is huge for him. And people will laugh at this, and people, especially, I say people laugh at this. Chelsea fans won't laugh at this because they know the score, but non-Chelsea fans will go, oh, you don't realise the whatever. The leap from Chelsea, or from Bournemouth, I should say, to Chelsea is huge. It's massive. Huge. It's huge in terms of expectation. It's huge in terms of, let's be honest, no matter what, we're getting some form of European football, and if it's not Champions League, it's going to be, I don't think it's going to be Conference League again, it's going to be Europa League, right? That leap straight away, he hasn't played in Europa League for Bournemouth, right? The fact that all of a sudden straight away you're going to be playing in front of 3 times as many fans every other week, and more often than that because of European competition. The leap's huge, and I don't know whether or not a 19, 20-year-old centre-back, by the time he gets to us, whatever he is going to be the perfect man to pair with, let's say, Levi Colwill, let's say Wesley Fofana. That's my worry with it. But the player himself, absolutely brilliant. Absolutely brilliant.
I used the Squawka comparison matrix recently, and if you don't know about it, get to know about it. It's a wonderful tool. Big up to Squawka. I used that looking at Mark Guehi. I looking at on Big Dino, and I compared Wesley Fofana and Levi Colwill because I think those are our 2 other big targets, aren't they? I would say that Mark and Dino are probably the main 2.
Yeah.
Is there any others that you would say are up there in terms of centre-back targets?
Jonathan Tah, maybe.
Jonathan Tah on a free. He's going to be a big wages. So yeah. Let's
take him, though, wouldn't you?
I would take him, but I don't think the board would take him.
Okay.
So I compared all of those guys. They're all very similar. I think Mark Guehi was a little bit more aerially dominant compared to Dino. Dino has a lower passing success rate than a Levi Colwill and a Wesley Fofana, and you do kind of worry about that, don't you? Like, i.e. being able to pass out from the back, they're going to have to be reliant on that. Like, we're talking about 92 and 91% for those 2, respectively, Wes and Levi, and he's at about 84. So,
who's he passing the ball to?
Yeah, fair enough. And also
they're being and Levi Colwill passing the ball to each other, or Enzo Fernandez and Caicedo.
Very, very true. It's a different system, isn't it?
And I'm not saying that the Bournemouth midfielders aren't good. It's a different system.
Yeah.
One thing that stats don't factor in for his experience. Look at how well, like a duck to water, Mark Guehi took to, taking the reins from Harry Maguire in that England team on the road to our, Euro final.
Yeah.
I thought that Mark Guehi did a really, really good job there. And in terms of showing that maturity to step up, I think that that's something that stats can't account for. And I think that that's something that we've had sort of glimpses on.
I find it really interesting that the Dean deal seemed earlier this week to be completely on. And then there were briefings late this week that have said that there are still other teams in the race. Real Madrid might be the ones that end up getting him, which, would be mad. He's obviously a class player. And he's obviously going to grow into his body, and I think he's going to be a really, really good centre-back in the future. I do worry about putting a, like you say, young lad, but also a lad that isn't yet physically fully there. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
With a player like Levi Colwill, who, by the way, I didn't realise this until recently. He's still only 22, Levi Colwill. Can you believe that?
It's mad.
Feels like he's been around playing in the Premier League for like 10 years.
Yeah.
So it's not for me. There's three factors to it. There's the actual age of someone. There's the experience and knowledge and sort of leadership that they possess on the pitch. And then there's also the physicality that predicates the Premier League. I think what's happened quite a few times this season for us is that we've been defending against bigger, stronger, more athletic teams. And we just end up getting bossed because we're younger. Mate, you know what it was like. Like, do you remember when you played like the year below you at school? And you were just like, I can push these guys off the ball. This is piss easy. This is not fair. In fact, I'm actually going to have to like take it a little bit easier because it's not actually fair, right? Like, I feel like sometimes we get done like that from a physical perspective because we're a young team.
Yep.
You know what I mean?
I mean, I personally would probably take Mark Gahey. And it might prove to be a ridiculous take over time because this boy might be top level in the future. But again, I'm a glory hunter to an extent. Do you know what I mean? I want immediate success, and I feel like immediate success is more likely to come in the form of a Mark Gahey signing than a Dino signing.
I just say I wouldn't really mind either of those.
No, I wouldn't mind either.
In a weird way, like I'm quite happy that those are the selections, and we could have had a lot worse options for centres.
Don't speak too soon.
And also, we need a centre-back desperately. So I'm glad that they are going for those two boys. I agree with you in the facets of time when we actually get down to it. I do think that Mark Gahey will be the one that we actually do end up getting.
Right, we do need to crack on with this. Let's move on to Everton. Now, obviously, it's in our hands. If we beat Everton at Stamford Bridge, because we are the early kick-off, we will move up to 4th in the Premier League table for about an hour or so until Newcastle go and thrash Ipswich. But either way, then we'll be back down to 5th and we'll be sitting pretty in those Champions League spots for at least a week or so, because obviously both Aston Villa and Nottingham Forest are playing respectively, not against each other, but in the semi-finals of the FA Cup. That's good news for me. I hope that, Villa progress. I hope that Nottingham Forest progress. I hope that their eyes are very firmly set on silverware this season, and that helps them, or helps us, have them take their eye off the ball a little bit. But let's not take Everton for granted at all, because recently, form-wise against Everton, especially since the takeover, by the way, it's been very, very inconsistent. Little fact for you, did you know that Everton were the first team that we ever played under the new ownership?
I thought you were going to say ever, but that's very interesting. Tell me what the score was.
1-0 Jorginho penalty at Goodison Park opening day of the season. We played in the white with little blue bits kit, and it was Sterling's debut, and I think Sterling wanted to take the penalty.
That doesn't surprise me.
Yeah, there you go. But over the last 9 matches, draw, win, loss, draw, win, loss, draw, win, loss.
Really?
So it's very order, in that time. Exact.
So what?
order.
What in that cadence? What would be the next one? Draw, win, loss. It would be a draw.
Draw, win. No, so it'd be a win.
Oh, okay, brilliant. Well then,
because we drew 0-0 with them.
Put your money with State Mate right
Saudi.
now.
There you go. Obviously, David Moyes returned in January. Both, I would say at the time, maybe Everton and Wolves were the only team that you could look at, or teams that you could look at and go, they could get sucked in. They could get sucked into somewhat of a relegation battle. But David Moyes, in my opinion, not only stopped the rot, I think he's done wonders there. And you might look at a lot of the draws in there. But to go into that Everton side and to turn draws into wins and losses into draws is something that at the bottom end of the table is not easily done and not often done. He went in there and in the league, do you know how many games he went unbeaten in the league after coming in?
Go on, tell me.
9 games.
Wow.
9 games. It came to an end with a 1-0 loss against Liverpool. Tight game.
It's going to happen.
Yeah.
That was quite controversial.
Bounced back, by the way, with a 1-1 draw against Arsenal, who were desperate for points at that time. Mm-hmm. Yeah. And then an underdog 1-0 victory against Nottingham Forest. Last time out, I thought they were going to get the draw against Man City, but obviously 2 late goals there, and Man City went on to win. Just quickly before we sort of get into our team sheets and whatnot, what have you made of David Moyes returning to Everton?
I think he's one of the most underrated Premier League managers of all time. And I mean that sincerely. I think he comes into clubs and he settles them down, and I think ultimately he's been very successful for the hands that he's been dealt. I think Man United were fools to get rid of him as quickly as they did, and I think if they had their time again, they would have had a lot more successful era if they had maintained the Moyes sort of management.
Yeah,
I really do think. I think if you look at there's been some big CV managers that have gone into Man United that have completely failed and flopped and put that club so far back. I think Moyes would have managed it. I think he would have done better signings. I think they would have been in a more sound financial perspective. And so I think they should have kept him. I think he's been so successful at the clubs that he's been at, and he's done what he's needed to do. I think West Ham fans are really regretting losing him now, and I think that regret will feel Everton's sort of success. I think Everton next season will have a very good year, even though they'll have another year of a weakened squad and probably not a lot of money to spend.
I do think there's something quite poetic about the fact that it will be David Moyes that is leading them into the new stadium. I think that's nice for Everton fans. I think that, it's like moving house, isn't it? Moving out for the first time on your own. I feel like the fact that David Moyes will be the man, running things and helping that transition, I think saying quite good for him. One thing that's good for us is they're going to be without both Dominic Calvert-Lewin, although he hasn't been prolific, and Amanda Broha. He's not going to be available because he's on loan from us. First choice defender, James Tarkowski. Say it for me.
Tarkowski. It's a very hard...
I can never say his name.
It's a very hard name.
Loved him on that reality TV program.
I was about to say, we do love him. Was he talking about his sex life on that show?
He had a few bits to say about it. He is out for them. I believe he won't be available for this game.
I've been told that as well.
I don't know whether he started or appeared in. I would imagine being a centre-back, he started 33 games from this season. So very much a first-choice centre-back for him, a very good player for him. Just quickly, off the top of your head, random question. When you think of Everton, and you think of the players that actually would be available against us, who springs to mind as their biggest danger for you? And when I say danger, I could class Caicedo as a danger. Do you know what I mean? Who's the player that you want to keep an eye on?
Ndai, probably, for them. He's a good player.
Yeah.
Is that a too easy answer? Who are you thinking of? Because you've got someone in your head.
For some reason, for me, whenever we play them, it's always Doucouré.
He's a class player, isn't he, Doucouré?
I mean, his numbers wouldn't suggest he's anything above average, really, for a Premier League player.
It goes back to that physical point where I think he's got the physicality to be able to boss some of our players.
Yeah.
And so do you know what? That makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. He's just one that I'm always just a bit like, need to watch out for him. Either way, speaking of watching out, this is the starting lineup that we will be going with. That, we believe, will do more than watch out. We believe, I'm hoping, we'll get the win against Everton. Robert Sanchez in goal, Reece James right back, Trevor Chalobah paired with Levi Colwill and Cucurella at left back, Enzo and Caicedo in the middle, Cole Palmer in front, Noni Madueke on the right, Pedro Neto on the left, and Nicholas Jackson through the middle. That means it is an unchanged lineup from the team that started at Fulham. Now, there will be people shouting at their tablets, iPhones, computers, TVs, whatever they're watching us on right now, and they will be saying that it is an absolute disgrace that we have not started Tyreek George in that lineup. Can you take some heat off me?
To answer your question, where would you play Tyreek George for the people that are doing those comments? Now, I'm going to channel my inner sort of like comment listening thing, Joey. Have you ever done this before, where you try and guess the future of what the comments will be? I think the comments will say that they prefer him to be up front instead of Nicholas Jackson.
Yeah, I don't.
Which, like, I think if you're like, forget the goal that he's just scored, which was
It's a great goal,
a beautiful moment, and I was so proud for him.
And would Jackson would Jackson have took that on the half volley and scored it on current form?
No.
Probably not. No. Probably not. No.
He wouldn't have.
But does that mean that he's a better option than Nicholas Jackson? If you're going on the last few games and whatnot, I understand. I completely understand that. I also understand that this is a young kid, right? We need to harness him. By the way, I want him to get 45 minutes in this game. I want him to get at least 40-odd minutes in this game, right? But I think that actually, if he was to start, he would be brought off. I don't think you'd get a 90-minute run out. And therefore, if I was correct on that, and you then said to me, okay, first 45, second 45, I think it's a no-brainer. It's second 45, is it not?
Yeah, I don't think starting with that. And I'm having nightmares about how bad our first halves are. And I think the pressure on Tyreek George, you know what would really annoy me is if he plays Tyreek George and starts him, and Tyreek George has a performance like Shim the other day, you know, in the Conference League. Do you remember when Shim played 45 minutes? Yeah. And then Enzo Maresca afterwards was just like, he did nothing. Like he didn't say he did nothing, but I'm paraphrasing. But he effectively said he did nothing and therefore had to take him off and had to improve the team. Basically, throwing him out to the Wolves and, you know, making him look like an absolute shit player when he's not. We know that he's a quality player. He's done it in the under-21s and in the under-18s. And so I really don't want Tyreek George to be the sort of the whipping boy that has to come on and has to deal with all that shit. And also, like as you say, I'd rather go in at half-time, know what the score's going to be. If it's 0-0, 1-0 down, 1-0 up, whatever, then make the decision and go, do you know what? Noni Madueke is having another one of his inconsistent games. And therefore, Tyreek might be better to come off one of the wings. It makes sense, doesn't it?
Can I say the weird thing about this, right, is I don't know whether this would be a controversial take or not, but if we were to start Tyreek George in this game, we're obviously, like, I get the thing of Nicholas Jackson. Would you agree with me it would be for one of the wingers?
What, that he comes on for?
No, if we were to start him,
yeah,
let's try and delve into the mind of Enzo Maresca a little bit. It is not going to be in place of Nicholas Jackson. That's not what it's going to be.
Well, I think in the mind of Enzo Maresca, no, but in the minds of Chelsea fans, yes.
Yeah, fine. But in the mind of Enzo Maresca, it's not going to be for Nicholas Jackson.
Not to start.
I can guarantee you that. Yeah. Not to start, right? So it's going to be for one of the wingers. This is the controversial take I'm about to give. What winger would it be for? Not in general. For Everton, who are probably going to play a low block against us.
Are you going to say Neto?
The obvious choice is it would be for Madueke, but I am going to say that it wouldn't even surprise me if it was for Neto.
And do you think that's a likely possibility that he does start in front of him?
No.
But if it was going to be for someone, it would be Neto.
Yeah, and I'm not necessarily...
Neto's been so good.
He has been so good. He's been absolutely brilliant. He's been absolutely brilliant.
Yeah.
I think that the best you see of Pedro Neto normally comes against teams that I believe will play more ambitious football than Everton. And listen, it's completely subjective on how the game goes. If we get an early goal, then it's all different, and they're forced to come forward, come out of traps a little bit and whatnot. But if they are, going to come and rock up with a low block and whatnot, then I feel like the obvious choice is to start him over a Madueke. We haven't even brought Jadon Sancho into the conversation.
I was literally about to say, if against a low block, I probably want Sancho to play.
There you go. You go. Because you need players that can deal with that. And I don't think that Pedro Neto I don't think he can't play against the low block, but I don't think it's one of his strengths. Whereas I think players like a Jadon Sancho, players like a Noni Madueke, and players like a Tyreek George are more suited to it than a Pedro Neto. By the way, Pedro Neto might be a better player than all three of them, but I'm just saying I think they're more suited to it. Let's wrap this one up, mate, because we've got to crack on. Let's get a score prediction from you. Chelsea against Everton. Do we march on into 4th place?
Draw.
1-0. I'm going 2-1 win. And I think we're getting Champions League football. If you don't agree with me,
I love it.
You can go
I love it.
yourself.
Can I ask you one final question? Very quick one. Does Nkunku make the bench?
Hopefully not. I'll see you in a bit.